Good morning, everyone. A quick recapitulation of whatever we have studied so far. We have come across two main characters from the story The Necklace by Guy de Maupassant. The most important character, obviously, is Matilda. She is a protagonist of this story, and we have seen that she was a poor but a very beautiful young girl, and she was married with a very simple clerk named Mr. Loisel. Matilda, she had a deep desire and love for jewelry and costly clothes. She was in no way satisfied with her present state of affairs because she thought that her beauty and her elegance was in no way it was in no way complementing her surrounding because she lived in a poor apartment with very poor kind of furniture, and she had no good clothes to wear, no ornaments to adorn herself. So she kept on complaining and nagging all the time to her husband, and also she would be most of the time sad and depressed because she thought that she was born for something better in life, but destiny had played a cruel game upon her, and so she was born into a poor family. Okay, so in that in that situation she always remained sad because of her poor condition. So we see that one day her husband, Mr. Loisel, brings an invitation card from a minister, okay, a very high profile party, for a very high profile party. But she, she forbids. I mean, she says that no, I'm not going to. She forbid because she doesn't have any good clothes or ornaments to wear. So she says that no, I won't be going to the party, to the ball party, because I don't have any fine clothes to wear. So her husband, who had been saving some money to buy a gun because it was his hobby to go for hunting, so he accepts that, okay, fine, I'm going to give you 400 francs that I have saved for buying a gun, but please do ensure that you get a nice dress for yourself, a pretty one, so that you can wear it for this party as well as for other parties as well. Okay, now after purchasing the gown, she's still not very happy. She's still sad. Okay, and when the day of the ball was approaching, one day she once again told her husband that I think I should not be going to the party. Now Mr. Loisel was trying to understand that what was her next problem, and he was asking her that why is it, what is that bothering you, what is it that is bothering you, why you won't come to the party, because you already have a dress now. And then she discloses that she doesn't want to go there because she doesn't have any beautiful ornaments to adorn herself, and the other ladies in the parties will be all wearing beautiful ornaments, so in contrast to them she will be looking very poverty stricken. So that was a very fresh kind of problem that she was creating, okay, for herself as well as for her husband. But now, knowing not what suggestion he would give, because he has no more money, and purchasing a jewel is not an easy thing, because it costs a lot of money to buy a jewel, isn't it? So he suggested that she can borrow something from Madame Forrester, okay, who was a good friend of Matilda. So now she goes to Mrs. Forrester's place, and Mrs. Forrester was a very rich lady, and she was also a good friend of Matilda. She takes out her jewel case and all kind of costly ornaments. So we can see that Madame Forrester is a very considerate lady, and she asks Matilda that you can choose amongst all of this, whichever you want you can take. So after shuffling and after going through all the ornaments, she finds one ornament which looked very pretty, okay, and it was a diamond necklace. Now she was little bit hesitating to ask for that, because she knew that it was a diamond necklace and it was a costly one. So she gathered her courage, and she requested Madame Forrester if she would like to give that necklace to her for one night, and Madame Forrester readily accepted. She said that of course you can take it from me. Okay, now this is where I think we have stopped in page number 41. Why? Yes, certainly. So here Madame Forrester says that yes, certainly you can take the necklace from me, the diamond one from me. So students, please follow the text from the book now. Okay, now she fell upon the neck of her friend, embraced her with passion, then went away with her treasure. Now, her happiness knew no bound here. You can see that she was so excited, so happy. Okay, she was in a state of ecstasy, and she, embraced and hugged her friend, and she could not thank her enough. Okay, she was, pouring, okay, all kind of gratitude to her, towards her friend, for giving her this opportunity to wear the necklace. Now the day of the ball arrived. Okay, so finally that night arrived, and Madame Loisel was a great success. And as expected, she was already a beautiful girl, beautiful lady, and now as she is in a very good, beautiful gown, and with that diamond necklace, she was an instant success. You can say great success. She was the prettiest of all. Okay, she was the most beautiful lady in that party, the most elegant, gracious. She was smiling and full of joy. Okay, so here we can see, students, see here, this is the kind of life that Matilda always wanted to have, isn't it? So she was smiling and she was full of joy. Never in her life she had been so happy. Okay. Okay, now students, let me ask you one thing. Although I'm not able to interact with you, but you please try to think over it, that this particular story has been written in third person narrative, isn't it? So Guy de Maupassant has written it in third person narrative. So there is an omniscient observer, you can say, one who is observing everything. The plot has been observed by the third person character, you can say. Okay. So does Matilda only only gets our scathing criticism, or do you think we can reserve some kind of sympathy for this lady? Okay, now considering ourselves in her position, considering it from a woman's point of view, okay, how would a young girl feel? Okay, a beautiful young girl feel, okay, when she is surrounded by poverty, okay, and when she compares herself to other beautiful, rich ladies. So definitely I don't think there is anything wrong in Matilda's wanting to be, wanting to look beautiful, wanting to look, gracious and elegant, isn't it? Of course there is some sense of materialism in her. Okay, and which is why she's blinded. Her materialism is so high that she's blinded, isn't it? She's blinded of what is, what good things she was surrounded with. Definitely that is there, but I think that from my personal point of view, I have a feeling that she also deserves some kind of sympathy from us, isn't it? So if you are being asked to write the character portrait of Matilda, you are not going to simply write all the negative aspects of Matilda. You can also add a few positive traits of Matilda. Okay, try to observe her character from an objective point of view. Don't be subjective. Okay, don't try to push her only towards negativity, because I have a feeling that this young girl, okay, this young woman with so much of beauty, okay, for any one of us, it is quite likely for any one of us to want to feel beautiful, or to look elegant, isn't it? There's nothing wrong in it, but obviously her expectations were too high from her life, isn't it? So she was not aware of the practicality that was surrounding her. So here we can see that in this paragraph we can see that the day of the ball arrived. So we can see that how happy this lady was, this woman was, and she was a great success. Okay, she was the prettiest of all. She looked elegant, gracious. She was smiling. She looked so graceful. She was always smiling and full of joy in that party, and all the men noticed her. This is something that she wanted, isn't it? She wanted attention. She wanted what? She wanted attention, and that night she looked so pretty that every man were noticing her. Okay, asked her name. They were asking her name and wanted to be presented. That means, and they presented themselves to dance with her. She danced with enthusiasm, intoxicated with pleasure, thinking of nothing but all this admiration. This victory is so complete and sweet to her heart. So and that day She was in her most natural form, I would say. She danced with so much of happiness, enthusiasm. She was intoxicated with pleasure. She was so happy that she was almost taken to a different world, intoxicated. Okay, intoxicated. I think you know the meaning of intoxicated, isn't it? So she was intoxicated with pleasure. I mean, she was so happy that she was taken to a different world. She could think of nothing else but all the admiration that was coming in her way. This victory was so complete, so sweet to her heart, and she felt so triumphant, so victorious that night. Okay, she felt that she had lived her life. Okay, and it was really very sweet to her heart. She went home towards 4 o'clock in the morning. Her husband had been half asleep in one of the little salons since midnight with three other gentlemen whose wives were enjoying themselves very much. Now, as she was partying all night in the ball, her husband, who definitely must have come back from the office and was a tired man, and he attended the party, but after sometimes he felt tired, and so he and a few other men, they were sleeping in one of the rooms in that hotel or party, wherever. Okay, and in the meanwhile their wives were all enjoying themselves in the party. Now it was time for them to go back to their home, because the night has fallen and they have to go back home. So he threw around her shoulders, these lines are very important, students. He threw around her shoulders the modest wraps they had carried, whose poverty clashed with the elegance of the ball costume. Now, here once again you can see that the husband was very caring, isn't it? And he was carrying a kind of an overcoat, and he tried to cover her up with that wrap, or with that coat, overcoat, whatever, and it looked very modest. It was a very simple coat, simple wrap here means any kind of overgarment, you can say, which they had carried, because they knew that it was very cold and they will be feeling cold while they return. Now here you can see that coat, okay, that coat or the wraps, it contrasted so much with the elegance of the ball costume. She was wearing a very beautiful, elegant dress, and she was wearing a beautiful necklace, and she looked the most beautiful lady in that ball party. Somehow she felt that this modest, this simple wrap, okay, poverty stricken wrap, okay, somehow it contrasted with the beauty and elegance of her ball costume. It did not match with her ball costume, okay. But here in that modest wraps, what did we find? He threw around her shoulders the modest wraps. The wraps were modest, but the love was very significant. The love of the husband for his wife was very significant. Okay, but somehow she felt uneasy. When the husband tried to cover her up with that wrap, she felt little bit uneasy, because somehow she felt that the coat was not going with the beauty of her dress. She just wanted to come back. Okay, she wished to hurry away in order not to be noticed by the other women who were wrapping themselves in rich furs. Now she's comparing her upper garment with the other ladies who were wearing beautiful furs, rich furs, isn't it? So they were wearing all beautiful furs to cover themselves up, but she was wearing only a petty, very simple, very modest wrap. So she just wanted to leave the party in a hurry, so that others don't notice that she is so ordinary. Okay. Loisel detained her. "Wait," said he. "I'm going to call a cab." But she would not listen and descended the steps rapidly. Mr. Loisel, not understanding what actually is going inside her mind. See, the psychologist, so Guy de Maupassant has so beautifully presented the psychological dilemmas of this particular character, Matilda, isn't it? She is indeed a very complex character, and all the psychological happenings have been so beautifully depicted by the author here. So, but her husband was, he failed to understand what was going in her mind. So he said that, "You please wait here. Detain means you just wait here. I will go and get back a cab." But she did not listen to what her husband said. She immediately descended the steps rapidly. She descended means got down, okay, the steps rapidly along with her husband, because she wanted to leave the party. Why she wanted to leave the party? Because she didn't want others to see her in that ordinary cloth, okay, in that overcoat, ordinary overcoat. So when they were in the street, they found no carriage. So when they came back and came to the on the street, they found that there was no carriage, and they began to find one for them. They were seeking, for a carriage, hailing the coachman whom they saw at a distance. And then finally they saw a coachman at a distance, and they coachman is a person, okay, who rides the coach, okay, carriage, you can say. So now they were calling a coachman, okay. They walked along toward the river, hopeless and shivering. Finally, they found one of those old carriages that one sees in Paris after nightfall. But somehow, they didn't find any carriage, okay, and the coachman was not ready to go. So they kept on walking along the river. They were hopeless and shivering. Hopeless, why? Because it was so cold, okay, and they were shivering, and they're hopeless because they were not able to find any carriage. Finally, they found one of those old carriages that one sees in Paris after nightfall. So finally, they finally saw a carriage, an old carriage that we usually people see, in Paris after nightfall, after the night ends. Now, the setting of this story is in Paris, isn't it? And Paris is considered to be the fashion hub of the world, isn't it? And Paris is considered to be the fashion hub of the world. We know that most of the all the most beautiful fashion shows all take place in Paris, isn't it? So it took them as far as their door, and they went verily up to their apartment. Now they came back to their ordinary house, and they went up verily up to their apartment. Now they were tired, and they walked up to their apartment. Now this woman will be tired doubly. Why? Because she knew one thing, that with the end of that night, all her dreams, all her aspirations, everything was going to end. So she was sad, and she was also tired, and the husband was also definitely tired, because he had to come back from the office to attend the party, and again next morning he has to go to his office. It was all over for her. She knew that it was all over for her. You can see the disappointment in this lady. And on his part, he remembered that he would have to be at the office by 10 o'clock. So once again, a very practical, a contrast between a practical life of the husband and the illusionary make-believe dream life, or dream world of the wife, isn't it? She removed the wraps from her shoulder before the glass for a final view of herself in her glory. Now she stood in front of the mirror, and she took off the wraps from her shoulder. She stood before the glass, before the mirror, and wanted to see herself for the last time in all her glory, in all her beauty. Suddenly she uttered a cry. Suddenly, she suddenly shouted, okay? Her necklace was not there around her neck. So where is the necklace? Loisel, already half undressed, asked, "What is the matter?" She turned towards him excitedly. I no longer have Madame Forrester's necklace." He arose in dismay. "What? How is that? It is not possible." And they looked in the folds of the dress, in the folds of the cloak, in the pockets, everywhere. They could not find it. He asked, "You are sure you still had it when we left the minister's house?" Now, you can see what kind of disaster landed in the life. So as she was trying to have a final view of her glory, of her beauty, she suddenly realized that she has lost the necklace. And she, with utter dismay, she told this to her husband. And the husband said that, "How is that possible? Because it was there in your neck. How is it possible that you have lost it?" And they tried to search it in the folds of her dress, in the folds of the cloak, in the pockets, everywhere, but they were not able to find the necklace. The husband further inquired that, "Are you sure that you saw it when you left the minister's house?" "Yes, I felt as it yes, I felt it as we came out. Yes, it was there with me. But if you had lost it in the street, we should have heard it fall. It must be in the cab." So the husband is saying that if you have dropped it somewhere on the street, then we would have heard it falling. Then it must have fallen in the cab. "Yes, it is possible." "Did you take the number?" "No." "And you? Did you notice what it was?" So they were asking each other if they have noted down the number. "No." They looked at each other, utterly cast down. Utterly, absolutely cast down means sad. They looked at each other, okay? They were expressing sadness over this episode. Finally, Loisel dressed himself again. Can you see the kind of disaster that has befallen upon them? Now let's see what happens next. I'm going, he said, over the track where we went on foot to see if I can find it. Let me go out, okay? Let me, in that, shivering cold night, this man has to again dress himself up to go on the track, go on the street to find out where the necklace might have fallen. And he went. She remained in her evening gown, not having the force to go to bed. Okay, she was sitting there, not even changing her dress, because she didn't have the courage to go to bed. Okay, she felt absolutely, paralytic, because she knew that what kind of disaster had come into their life. Towards 7 o'clock, her husband returned in the morning. Okay, he was there all throughout the late night. He had found nothing. He went to the police and to the cab officers and put an advertisement in the newspapers offering a reward. So whatever they could do, they have done everything possible ways to find back the necklace. Okay, a complaint was lost in the police station, in the cab officers, and some kind of notice was put up in the in newspapers. Some kind of reward was also being offered, but nothing really helped. She waited all day in a state of bewilderment. Bewilderment means, you can say, shock. Okay, being puzzled or shocked, you can say. She was puzzled, and she was waiting all throughout the day, so that in the evening her husband would come back with some good news. But that frightful disaster was waiting for her. Okay, what was the disaster? Loisel returned in the evening with his face pale. Pale means colorless. He had discovered nothing. The necklace was not found. He said, "Write to your friend that you have broken the clasp." Clasp means the hook of the necklace, and that you will have it repaired. That will give us some time to manage something. She wrote as he dictated. Okay, she followed whatever her husband advised her. She asked her to write a friend to her friend, Madame Forrester, that she has broken the hook of the necklace and that it will be repaired and returned to her very soon. At the end of a week, they had lost all hope. They waited for a few days, but after a few days, they lost all hope. There was no chance that they are going to get back the necklace. And Loisel, older by 5 years, Mr. Loisel was older to Madame Loisel by 5 years. Now he declared that we must replace this jewel. We have to buy another jewel, and we have to replace this lost jewel. In a shop of the Palais Royal, they found a chaplet of diamonds, which seemed to them exactly like the one they had lost. Okay, so they went to a very luxurious shop, ornament shop, jewelry shop, and there they found a chaplet. Okay, chaplet is string of beads, you can say. So here, string of diamonds. So a necklace of diamonds, which looked exactly the replica of what they had lost. Not exact one, but almost looked similar to that one. So it was valued at 40,000 francs. Can you imagine, students? This husband had to think so much before giving her 400 francs. Okay, now this is going to cost 40,000 francs. And after some kind of bargaining, they said that they would be able to give it for 36,000. So 36,000 francs they have to manage. Loisel possessed 18,000 francs, which his father had left him. So, as patriarchal property, Mr. Loisel got possessed how much? 18,000 francs. He borrowed the rest. Can you imagine? He is now going to give up all that he has inherited from his father. Okay, we hardly want to disown whatever we get from our parents, isn't it? Because those are our last resorts, right? But here he has to give up that money, that 18,000 francs, which his father had left for him, or his patriarchal inheritance, and he borrowed the rest. That means 18,000 and another 18,000 he had to borrow. From where did he borrow the money? He made ruinous promises. He made disastrous promises. Okay, took money from usurers. Usurers, people who lend money at very high interest rate. Okay, loan givers, you can say, and the whole race of lenders. So he went to every usurer, every lender in that city. Okay, and he managed the money. He had to pay very high interest for borrowing this money from the usurers and from these lenders. Then he went to get the new necklace, depositing on the merchant's counter 36,000 francs. When Madame Loisel took back the jewels to Madame Forrester, the latter said to her in a frigid tone, "You should have returned them to me sooner, for I might have also needed them." So now, after collecting the money in such, disastrous manner, Mr. Loisel somehow brings home the necklace, okay, to replace the older one. Now Madame Loisel goes back to her friend Madame Forrester to hand over the necklace in a box. Now you can see here Madame Forrester, what did she say? She said in a very frigid, in a very strong manner, that you should have returned it to me on time, because I might have also needed them to wear it in some other party. So here you can see that such insult, isn't it, Madame Loisel is facing for not returning the necklace on time. She lost everything. She lost her self-respect. She lost all the money, and now they are all running in debt, both of them. Okay. Madame Forrester did not open the jewel box as Madame Loisel feared she would. Now Madame Forrester, she didn't try to check and open the jewel box to see her necklace. She just kept the box as was offered by Madame Loisel. And Madame Loisel was, at the back of her mind, she was afraid of the fact that if she opens the jewel box and if she checks and find that it was not the one that she had given to her, then once again, there might be some problem. What would she think if she would perceive the substitution? So these are the questions that are now coming into her mind. She is saying that what would she think if she perceives the substitution, if she understands, if she comes to know the substitution, that means that I have changed and altered and gave her some other necklace. What should she say to me? Would she take her for a robber? Would she think that I am a thief, I am a robber? But that did not happen in that way. Madame Forrester did not want to scrutinize, and she just kept the jewel box as was offered by Madame Loisel. Madame Loisel now knew the horrible life of necessity. Now students, here you can see there is a huge transformation in the character of Madame Loisel. She has for the first time come in terms with the realities of life, the practical problems of life. See, the rest of her life was all surrounded in illusionary hopes and all artificial dreams, isn't it? But for the first time she will come in terms with the realities of life, with all the necessities of life, horrible life of necessity. To pay back the money that they have borrowed from the usurers and from the lenders, okay, they had to sacrifice a lot. Let us see what are the sacrifices they are going to make. She did her part, however, completely heroically, okay, but we will see that although she had made the mistake, okay, but to completely come over from that situation, she has done it in a very heroic manner, okay. It was necessary to pay this frightful debt. So the money that they had borrowed from the money lenders had to be paid back, and she had to pay back with added extra interest rate, isn't it? So they had to send away the maid. She also the husband even was he was a very caring man, and so they also had a maid at the house, okay, although he had very meager income, but still he managed to keep a maid for her. But now Madame Loisel lost her maid. They changed their lodgings. She was always complaining about her house. She always thought that the house looked so bad, but now they are going to live in a much poorer situation. They changed their lodging, that means their house. Now they rented some rooms in an attic. Attic is the upper part of a house. It is attic you will find mostly in British architecture, where you have a small staircase, okay. You must have seen it in English movies and all. In wooden houses, you have small staircases made of wood, and then you have an attic where mostly attics are kept for libraries, okay. So they had to rent a small room in an attic, okay, very poor condition. She learned the odious work of her kitchen. Now she has to work inside the kitchen. Previously she had a maid to help her out, but now she has to do all her work all by herself inside the kitchen. All the odious means tiresome work inside the kitchen. She washes the dishes. She washed the soiled linen. She had to wash her dishes. Her soiled linen means dirty clothes, linen clothes, their clothes, dish clothes, which she hung on the line to dry. She took down the refuse to the street each morning and brought up the water. She has to go down to the street, okay, to bring water, stopping at each landing to catch her breath. So it was a long way. Water was not available in the house, so she has to bring the water from some other place. So she has to go to fetch the water, and at each stopping she would stop there to catch some breath. And clothed like a woman of the people, she went to the grocers, the butchers, and the fruiterers with her basket on her arm. Okay, and just like, just she clothed herself like an ordinary woman, and she would go for, for buying the groceries. She would go to the butcher's place. She would go to buy the fruits from the fruit sellers with her basket on her arms. So you can see that how she has invited all this kind of trouble for herself, isn't it? So she would be doing all her shopping all by herself, because there is no maid now to help her out, haggling to the last saw of her miserable money. Okay, and haggling to the last saw of her miserable money, which she was trying to count and save the last small amount of her miserable money. Saw is a small amount of money. Okay, now the husband worked evenings. And what about the husband? The husband was also working very hard to to pay back the money that they had borrowed from others. The husband worked evenings, putting the books of some merchants in order, and nights he often did copying, at first 5 saws a page. So previously, this husband always had some good time for this wife, isn't it? He always tried to finish wind up his work quickly, and would come back home to spend some time with his wife. But now what is happening? Now this husband has to work day and night. No time for them for giving to his wife. The husband worked in the evening, putting the books of some merchants in order. So he was working. He was doing some extra work also. She was taking order for some merchants, and then at night he would be writing some pages, okay, for which he used to get 5 saws for each page. And this life lasted for 10 years. So you can see that this kind of wretched life, okay, disastrous life, lasted for 10 years. At the end of 10 years, they had restored all. And finally, after the end of 10 years, they were able to pay back all the money with all the interest. Madame Loisel seemed old now. Okay, students, let me stop here. I will continue in another video.